Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you've all enjoyed your lunch. And anyone still eating lunch who's been counting down the minutes for the sessions to start again, you can now come over here. Hi, everybody. This panel is the sustainability of women's football, learning across leagues. And I'll introduce our two panelists. We're only two, not three or four, so we can have a nice in-depth conversation, and I may even come to the audience at some stage. But first of all, Sofia is recently elected 1 month ago to the board of the Portuguese FA. Maybe that's a little round of applause that's needed for that. With a responsibility for women's football. A lawyer by trade, has worked at all levels of the Portuguese football system, from smaller clubs such as that one, which I couldn't pronounce. I think they're in the room here as well. To the Porto Regional Football Association, to Braga, and now obviously to the FA. So a really deep experience at all levels of the game, which will help for this discussion. And then Ural, who for the last 18 months has been part of the Turkish Football Federation with a responsibility for women's football. Previously to that, was on the board of Galatasaray, a club some of you might have heard of, and where he founded the women's football department team. Have I missed anything, or is that a pretty good thing? Great. First of all, let's clarify what we're going to talk about in terms of what sustainability means, because it's a big word. We're not going to talk about environmental sustainability. We're going to talk mainly about finance, youth development, and ultimately, when we say sustainability, it means the continuation and the growth of both the professional and the grassroots game in both Portugal and Turkey. And also, I should probably introduce myself. I'm Matt, the founder of Gold Click. We're a storytelling organisation in football, rooted in first-person perspective storytelling, and we've worked a lot with women at both elite and grassroots level. So if I feel the need to say anything, maybe I'll make myself a third panellist. But let's crack in. So, Sofia, we'll come to you first. You have a new role, 1 month in. What's the reality that you've walked into? What are the challenges that lay ahead?
So, yes, we just started at the Portuguese FA. We took our place a month ago, so we're now figuring everything out. But, Portuguese League, we have currently 12 teams in the first division, strong teams and big teams such as Benfica or Sporting or Braga, for example. But we also have independent clubs, two at the moment. And we have smaller clubs, as the one that we've mentioned before, Valadares, which are here also today with us, and Albergaria also here, smaller clubs that are with us for a long time. And these clubs have been pioneers in women's football for a long time, investing even before big brands came along. So it's very important for us to keep them in our leagues, in our competitions, doing the work they've been doing and promoting women's football. This is our reality. Our league is not professional at the moment. We will try to see how that goes in the long term. But then also at the same time, even though we have a pool of pretty good players, such as Kika, as you might know from Barcelona, or Jessica, who is playing in the US, we also have a very small pool of players actually playing in Portugal. So our recent numbers, we have 20,000 players from football and futsal, and if you count only football, it's around 14,000, which from all age groups, which makes our pool of, picking up players both for teams and national teams very, very small. So this is our reality at the moment, and we need to work on this.
Great, thank you. And pretty much same question to you, Ural. What is the reality, what is the landscape of Turkish women's football at the moment, and what are the biggest challenges that are on your to-do list?
Thank you very much. So, as you may know, Turkey is a football country, and since about 30 years, we have a female women's football organization. But since 5 or 6 years now, it's very serious, because all Turkish giants, men's football giants, Galatasaray, Fenerbahçe, Beşiktaş, Trabzonspor, they established their own women football branch. And one of them, Galatasaray, I was in the board of directors. I established the Galatasaray women's football branch, and now it was a destiny change because after that, in Turkey, women's football is becoming a central field of the Turkish football climate. Now, in our Super League, in Turkish Super League, Women's Super League, we have 14 teams. You know, as you may know, Turkey is a very large country, so we have borders in Iran, in Syria, in Iraq, in Armenia. So we have Eastern women football teams as well. It's a challenge for Turkish football because it's very, you know, far from Istanbul and the western part of the country. By the flight, it's 2 hours or 2.5 hours, which is a very far place. And we have total 158 women's football teams. We have some academies. And Turkish women's football is now in a better way because last year Galatasaray, it was a part of UEFA Champions League organization. Galatasaray was in the same group with Roma, Wolfsburg, and I think it was...
We're not testing. It's
yes,
fine.
yes, yes. It was like this. And now we are working on how to collaborate with the European friends, with the other countries' teams. We need more, you know, collaboration, mutual understandings. And now this is the general framework for women's football in Turkey.
Just to pick up on one point, you said obviously the vastness of the country. Does that create any specific challenges for you to organize?
You know, for example, just in the border of Iran, we have a city, Hakkari. Now, 2 women's football teams from Hakkari is in the Super League of Turkey. It's very, you know, strange. Hakkari is a poor place if you compare with the other cities of Turkey. But women's football is a social platform for Turkish women as well. So with two Turkish Super League teams, next year we will have 2 Hakkari teams, and in Galatasaray, Fenerbahce, they will go to the eastern part of Turkey. It's a very hard thing for Turkish ruling, you know, conditions. It's a challenge. I can say that it's a challenge. Yeah.
How did that happen? Just to kind of delve in a little bit, how did that happen? That this kind of situation.
The first thing is the financial situation of the clubs. So if you go to Hakkari with the accommodation, with the airplane, all logistics are very hard in Turkey. So this is the first rule. And second rule, foreign players. In Turkey, we don't have a limit for foreign players in women's football. So each team has 8 to 10 women football players from all around the world. Colombia, Spain, you know, Portugal, Germany as well. And we have European Turks football players from Germany, from Austria, from Belgium. You know, it's quite an international base, we can say.
Great. So we've set out the reality. We know what some of the challenges are. Where do we start? How do we come up with solutions? What's the biggest priority for you at the moment in your second month, I guess? What do you need to do to make the game more sustainable?
So one of our priorities, of course, is to work on the top of the pyramid, work with our clubs, with our regional associations also, but also with the city halls, to try to leverage the first league and, in a way, professionalize the league. As I've mentioned before, we're not professional. We don't have a fully professional league. We have a couple, maybe 5 or 6 fully professional clubs, but not the league. And we need to professionalize the league. But we cannot do this, you know, at any cost. We need to respect the clubs that we have. We need to work with them, and that's part of the challenge that we need to have. But also, as I've heard here before in other panels, one of the good things in women's football is that everyone is willing to participate and to discuss and to make part of these challenges and solutions to every problem. So we're looking very forward to working with our clubs in this area. But also, the other challenge, as I've mentioned, is increasing the number of girls playing. So This is very, very important for us. One of the rates, increasing rates that we have this year was the biggest rise was in the under 11 teams. So we think this is our main focus should be here. And this is very, very important for us. It was part of my role when I was working at the Porto FA. We need to create competitions and opportunities and clubs to join us, to have more girls playing. And this is going to be very hard work for us, working with every association, working with every club that wants to join us, of course. But this is a matter of giving girls opportunities, giving them the opportunity to play, having clubs close to their homes. They don't need to travel long distances to play, and trying to find role models for them. And it's very important for us, for the future that we see. Of course, we need to establish a new strategic plan for women's football in Portugal, and part of this will be most of our guidelines, increasing participation in our girls, of course, also professionalizing the league, trying to bring more women to join us in different roles, either coaching, but also refereeing, management, healthcare, any role that we can find in that to be part of women's football. We think it's very important to have more women on board. And so this will be, I think in the next years, will be our main challenges.
I'm just going to dive into one of the points you made, which is around focusing on the under-11s, which I think was a really interesting, a very specific, tangible thing you can do. You mentioned role models, you mentioned distance to travel to find clubs. Are they the main two things that can make it work and attract you to under-11s, or is there anything else? Because again, we're sharing learning, like how do you attract that age group, and how do you make it easier for them?
So I think the first, well, it's very complex because we have clubs with limited space, and most of the space is occupied by men's football, which has been traditionally played in our areas. So we need to make clubs comfortable and wanting to have women's football. We want clubs to want to have. We don't want them to have because they're just having women's football. So we'll work with them in these areas. What we did, for example, at Porto Association was to start the under-11s with the small-sided groups so that the girls could have a place to play, and also allowing clubs to keep other spaces for men also to try to train younger ages also, age groups. So we need to find strategies to have these little girls starting to play and then finding their own pathway all in the club or different clubs in the area. But the thing is, the biggest offer they have, it will be more girls playing, because actually girls do want to play football. They just need to find a place to do it with the right people, the right conditions, some places that they identify with. And so it's very important for us to try to find these clubs that want to really join us and make it grow. We have very different realities as in any country, so we have bigger cities and smaller cities with less girls playing, so we need to work on these different realities the whole country.
Put you slightly on the spot. You can say no. I don't have an example, but do you have like a specific example of a club that you think has done this really, really well?
We do. We have several clubs that have been doing this pretty well in our country. I'll mention maybe two of them that I've worked with closely because of my previous role, and so I'm more comfortable. One of them was Valadares. They started their women's program, I'd say 15 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, and one of their goals at the time, so 15 years ago we didn't have big names in women's football, was to have all youth pathway for women's, and this was very, very successful. And actually they're still one of the clubs that has the higher number of girls playing in Portugal. So competing with Benfica also and Sporting and big brands, they're still competing with them. And also we have, in a different approach, we have, for example, another team from Porto area, which is Rio Tinto. They started recently, and they have a different approach with girls playing with boys most of their pathway. And so they're doing a different path for the girls, but still it's valuable path and works, and they have a lot of girls playing also in the club.
Feels very intentional, which is
Yeah.
the key to it all. Ural, similar question to you. Obviously, you laid out the reality, the challenges. What is your one biggest priority in terms of creating a sustainable football pyramid?
Yeah. You know, as the Turkish Football Federation, our main focus is to create a system for the sustainability of women's football. It's not only the financial sustainability, institutional sustainability as well. So we have strategies and initiatives for that. As you may know, the UEFA and FIFA, they have a common program. The name is Unstoppable. So we have a good framework in that. And in Turkey, after having the big football clubs, the giants, Galatasaray, Fenerbahçe, Trabzonspor, and Beşiktaş, now we have a broadcasting framework. So in Turkey, I signed an agreement with A Sports, and they now all women football Super League match, they are in TV channels every weekend. So it was a revolution for Turkish women's football. In men's football, we have a big opportunity with beIN Sports, but in women's football, it was the first year for that. And we have to create the diversified revenue streams. So what to do for that? We need new sponsorships. So in Turkey, you know, textile business is not bad in Turkey. So I promote women's football and textile business entrepreneurs. And now we have a sponsor for women's football. The name of the company is LC Waikiki. It was a French brand, but now it's a Turkish brand. A Turkish entrepreneur, he booked the intellectual property rights of this company. So it's a new thing for us. And on the other hand, we need grassroots development. And for youth academies, we just established a new foundation. And this foundation will help only for the youth academies, women's football youth academies. It's a very new notion for Turkey. And we established the Youth 17 League in Turkish Football Federation. All professional and amateur clubs, they have to be the part of this U17 football, women's football division. And on the other hand, we need leveraging media partnerships to increase the visibility of women's match. Not only the conventional TV channels, we have a good YouTube channel. In our YouTube channel, we have a good streaming platform, and there is maybe hundreds and thousands people, they are following this YouTube channel. And you know, these are the general framework for our sustainability works.
You can tell now I like to dive into a specific example when you mention it. How did you convince the textile company that the right move for them was women's football in Turkey?
Yes. You know, in Turkey, most probably, Turkey's population is about 85 million people. And absolute majority of these people, this population, is very looking forward for the football economy, football. There is a big interest in Turkey, but for women's football, textile business entrepreneurs, they are very open-minded because it's a consuming process. So LC Waikiki is a very important and big brand in Turkish textile business. They were very friendly with us, and they became a big sponsor on the women's football field. And on the other hand, Turkish leading GSM operator, Turkcell, they gave us the first division league name is Turkcell Super League. Turkcell Super League. It's one of the most prestigious sponsors in our women's football field. And, you know, we have to move forward for other resources as well. We need a crowdfunding framework for women's football, because, you know, only sponsors is not enough for developing the sponsorship line. So these are the general frameworks for me.
Great. A slightly challenging question now to both of you. We've spoken a lot about the big clubs, Galatasaray, Besiktas, Fenerbahce, Porto, Sporting, Benfica, Braga. How do you make sure that we don't replicate what happens in a number of men's leagues and our leagues just become dominated by the big clubs? How do we make sure that it's sustainable for all clubs, not just domination by the few?
Oh, that's $1 million question, I think. We've had different panels today, and we've heard, for example, Luis talking about this and the importance of keeping independent clubs also alive. And of course, we do need every club to join us and to keep in women's football. At the same time, we know that we need money coming in and investment in women's football, both in the federations and the leagues, but also in the clubs. So it's very hard to understand what the path could be. We have a new investors coming in women's football and managing and helping these smaller clubs to drive through and keep growing and fighting and finding their own way in women's pyramid. So I think it's very important to keep everyone on board and try to keep them all in the same page. But actually, that's the $1 million question.
Only one million. Same question to you, Ural. How do you make sure that it's a pyramid for all? Every club can be sustainable rather than just domination potentially by the big clubs. I know that there are plenty of other teams that are making their way up through the pyramid.
You know, it's a very fair question, because without the pioneer clubs, you cannot engage the community to the women's football field. So a few years ago, the Galatasaray, Fenerbahce, and Besiktas, they were not the part of Turkish women's football, but the broadcasting rights, sponsorships, it was not really good. But when Turkish ambassador in Spain, Nüket Küçükel Ezberci, she was the board member of Turkish Football Federation. They gave a chance for Turkish football teams. Only it was a one-shot right. If a Turkish Super League, men's Super League team want to create a women's football department, they can start with the Women's Super League. So it was a very important opportunity for big pioneer teams of Turkey, and Galatasaray, Fenerbahce, Besiktas, they established their own women's football departments. It was a big opportunity for women's football in Turkey. So this is the general framework for your question.
Yeah, it's interesting because you know the question is almost phrased from a perspective of the English league, whereas actually in other situations the bigger clubs can be the ones that unlock for everybody else.
This is a reality, but also as institutions like Turkish Football Federations, all institutions, football institutions, we have to support the other clubs as well. There is no only Porto or Sporting Lisbon, Galatasaray, Fenerbahce. We need to support the other sportive organizations as well. But we need the pioneer clubs. This is the realistic point of view of world football world. Yeah.
Great. I have two more questions, but if there is anyone in the audience that wants to put their hand up and ask a question, I'll come in a couple of minutes' time. So let's go on to something more positive now. My organisation is a storytelling organisation. We like a good story. Sofia, can you imagine a 15-year-old Sofia in 10 years' time? What does the future of Portuguese women's football look like? Paint us a picture of what Sofia would encounter as she came up. Not from 15, 11. From 11 years old, what does her path look like in the future?
That would be nice. Yeah. Be 11, 15 years. Would be nice. No, I think that I'm sure that women's football for these young girls will be so bright, so different. But I also believe that we need to keep in mind and remember these younger generations of all the struggles that women's football has had and still has at the moment, so that everyone understands our path, where we came from, and our fights, because we'll need to keep pushing for women's football for many years to come. I'm sure of this. And I think I'm hopeful that these young girls do have role models that they can look for. I remember when I was 11 years old, there was no role model in women's football. My role model actually was a journalist that was it's true, it was a Portuguese journalist that was in Portuguese television working in football, in men's football. And I was like, okay, this is nice. It's possible to be a woman and working in football when I was 11. So this is the role models that we had before, and I hope these young girls do grow up with role models in different areas, not only players, but also, coaches, refereeing, management areas, people that they can look up to, because if we can see it, we can be it. So it's very important to give these role models to young girls, and I'm sure the future will be bright for them.
Ural, what does the future look like for an 11-year-old Turkish girl in 10 years' time?
My long-term vision is that every Turkish girl, or all countries' girls, in 12 years ago, they have to dream for the future. They have the right to play football, not only in Turkey, in Muslim countries, in Europe as well. And we need to support them as football federations, as sponsors, as other institutions. It should be a equality when you compare with the men's football world. For example, in Turkey, Galatasaray and Fenerbahçe coach, they are men technical directors, not women. But in our national team in Turkey, we have Necla Güngör. She's a woman, but she's coming from the men's football world. So maybe in the future, all professional football teams of Turkey, women football teams of Turkey, they will have women coaches. It's another dream for me in the near future, because if we're talking about the gender equality, this is the part of the game. Yes, these are my last points.
Excellent. Well, there's going to be one more question, unless... does anyone have a specific burning question that they want to ask any of the panelists? No need. If not, all good. Last question then. We're talking about sharing learnings from leagues. What are you taking from other leagues that aren't the Portuguese league or the Turkish league? Is there anything you're seeing in England, in Spain, in Germany, and in other leagues that are of your size that you're seeing as watch-outs, or you're seeing as opportunities? Like, what do you see when you look around Europe?
So we are, as I mentioned, we are in a professional league. We're looking to other leagues to learn with them. Of course, Spain is a good example. They're close to us, and in some areas they're very identical. Also in England, different market, the US, but still we can always learn a bit from everyone. But I think there are a couple of challenges that we're finding, and also we've heard in the morning sessions. For example, the growth in the viewership or the attendances, they're not growing as fast as we expected them to grow. So I think we all need to be very aware of these, and again, work all together to bring people to the stadiums, to bring people to watch the matches, to create a good product that we can sell. And so, yes, we're looking and trying to understand where the priorities are. We know the importance that broadcasting revenues have. In Portugal, we do have channels from the federation, TV channel from the federation, which promotes a lot of women's games. Most of the games are from women's football. And also we have the other games in YouTube, I think, so online. So we need to work and to understand all the different challenges that are starting also in the UK now, with the discussion of closing the league for some time to grow the value. Again, women's football, we're just navigating through, and we need to be flexible enough to find our way through the difficulties that we're finding. So we're trying to learn with them.
Is that a conversation topic at the moment in the FA, the WSL's closed league potential for 5 years?
Well, it's a conversation at the WSL, not in the Portuguese league.
Sure.
No. We're now reducing, actually, because of the international calendar also and the competitiveness that we need to have to our clubs. We're reducing the number of teams in the league, so we're reducing from 12 to 10 in the next season, which is also a challenging situation to our clubs this year. But we think that it's important to increase internal competition and to strengthen our clubs in the European competitions. We have had Benfica in the last years going through Champions League, doing a great work in Champions League. Next season, fortunately, we'll have 3 teams competing for spots in Champions League. So it's very important for us and for our clubs as brands, but also for our players, for our market to have as many teams as we can in these kind of competitions.
It's really fascinating to get to the same goal, leagues doing things in different ways, and the reduction to increase competitiveness. Really, really interesting. Same last question for you.
Yeah.
What was the question? Looking at other leagues and learnings and things you see from other countries that you want to either replicate or that you think are watch-outs.
You know, it's a little bit hard to compare Turkey with other countries because, as I told you before, Turkey is a very large country, and our eastern side, there is borders with Iran, Iraq, Syria, Armenia. You know, it's very strange if you compare with European France, European countries. So for a good quality football, we need a talent pool, a biggest talent pool. So Turkey has an advantage for that because in Turkey we have much more, borders, much more friends. In Georgia, for example, is a Turkish neighbor. We have to collaborate with our neighbors. This is advantage for Turkish women football. My main focus is to increase the collaborations with European federations like Portugal or other friends and our neighbors. It will be the first main goal of our football federation for the future.
Brilliant. Thank you both very much. We'll leave it there, 3 minutes early. A round of applause, please, for Sofia and Ural.
Thank you.
2 more minutes, okay. Well, I mean, we've got a question. There wasn't even a plan. Okay, go for it. Yeah, absolutely.
Question for Sofia. I was listening to you and I tried to remember in which team sports, Portugal is strong in women. Can you tell me?
For everyone's benefit, which sports are Portuguese women very strong at? And presumably, what can you learn from those other sports?
Because handball, for example, in men is growing very fast.
Yep.
Rugby is growing very fast. Football is very strong. But women,
Well, we're very strong in futsal. No, we are. Our futsal team actually is in the federation, but our futsal team is very, very strong. They are currently playing for World Cup. They were in the Euros before. They were in the Olympics, in Youth Olympics before. So yeah, they're very, very strong.
the question was actually if it's only for football women, the challenge, or it's for all the...
No, it's for. So our challenge in Portugal is for any sports in the women's side, of course. Unfortunately, Portugal also has one of the lowest rates of sports participating in Europe. So it's a big challenge for us as a country to change this kind of mentalities. And also, of course, we know the power that football has, and because it's very visible, everyone likes football, everyone talks about football. So if we can change things a little bit also by playing, and we do have some youth programs in schools, not directly for football, but to increase participation that are promoted by the Portuguese FA for really young kids to start physical activities in school. Not directly to football, but it's very important for us to increase the participation rate in sports.
Why is the participation rate so low in Portugal across sport?
I have no idea.
Fair enough.
I think we're just.
We see this happens when you go off
No,
script.
because we have good weather.
But it's
and,
good
I mean,
to not
it's,
know something.
Yeah, and I think could be that the time challenges between working hours and
Yep.
family times, maybe, I don't know, social barriers, cultural barriers also.
Yeah.
But we do have the lowest rate, unfortunately.
Very good. I think we are now good.
Another question.
Oh, another question. Oh, look at this. Go for it.
But how do I maintain it? How to, aside from maybe organizing it?
So I'll give you. Thank you for your question. So do you want to?
No, I was just going to say.
I'll give you the example that what we did at the Porto Football Association. So when we were there in the beginning, we only had one competition, which was mainly focused for under 15, under 17. So they're all bundled up together in one competition. And you can see the age group is very different here. One of the things that we did was to challenge our clubs. And literally what we did was to pick up our phone and call every club that we knew could have any girl playing or any kind of interest in women's football. And try to call them and say, look, we're starting 3 different competitions with 3 different age groups, one under 17, under 15, and under 13. Of course, we knew that from these 3 age groups, girls wouldn't just pop up. So we knew we need to start slowly in one of them. Turned out to be under 13, which was one of the competitions that we didn't have before, so we lacked more girls. So in the first year, what we did, we had only 4 teams wanting to play with us. We tried to keep it simple, to play in smaller sides, so that the clubs would start that without having to decide if they wanted a women's side or a men's side. So smaller pitches, so that girls with a smaller number of players also, so that they could start the team easier. And so from 4 teams, in the beginning of the season, we did a small competition, and we kept calling the other clubs and saying, look, we're starting this, we're doing a small competition now, but by the end of the season or middle of the season, we'll do another competition. So if in 6 months you find girls, we'll start again and everyone can join us. And the funny thing is, the year after, so from the first part of the season to the second part, we've increased from 4 clubs to 6, but to the next season, we've increased from 6 clubs to 14. And in that year, we started under 11, and we had the same problem again. Because the younger you go in the age group, the lower girls you have starting to play. The same thing happened, and the same thing happened the year before. So in the age group of under 11, in the second year of competition, we ended up with 12 teams. So I think it's trying to find ways to take all barriers out from the clubs, all difficulties they might find, and try to make it easier. And also keeping in touch with everyone, trying to, Yeah.
Tips
That's
for
what we did and it worked, so I don't know.
Tips for sustainability for a new movement. You can't undervalue the hard work of just getting in touch and picking up the phone sometimes, right? So now we are done. Now we're over time. And thank you again,
Thank you.
Sofia and Ural. And yeah, another round of applause, double round of applause. And the next panel will be moderated by Oscar Gonzalez, and it will be the growth factor, analysing PR and business success. So stick around for that.
Yeah.